Hello everyone, welcome to round number 2 of the FIDE Grand Prix 2022 in Belgrade, Serbia. In this game, we will feature Vidit's game against Vladimir Fedosev of Russia. Vidit won his second game in a row. He leads Group C. Alright, let's go through the game. Alright, Vidit was white, he went for d4. Fedosev went for knight f6, c4, e6. Knight c3, bishop b4. We have the Nimzo Indian with bishop b4, e6, and knight f6. Nimzo Indian is in the house. So queen c2, castles. a3, an immediate capture on c3, takes on c3, and white has the pair of bishops. b6, okay, an open line for his bishop, either b7 or a6. Bishop g5, bishop b7, f3, controlling the important central square, the e4 square. So d5, c takes d5, e takes d5, e3, preparing bishop d3, knight into e2, and castle. Rook e8, nice tempo here, okay, tempo on the rook, on e8, and shifting his bishop to a4 and c2. So c6, bishop a4. At the same time, he's also blocking the way of this bishop to this diagonal right here. Knight b7, knight into e2. If you want to get rid of the pair of bishops, you can also go for knight e4 here. Takes on d8, knight takes c3, takes on c3, rook takes d8. This is also a possibility. So knight b7, knight into e2. h6, bishop h4, bishop a6, attacking e2, delaying white's castling here. Bishop d1, protecting e2. It's not possible to take on c6 with the bishop, for example. There's rook c8, pin. Yeah. You cannot also take on c6 with the queen. There's rook takes e3, counter pin. So bishop d1, queen to e7, bishop f2. Both bishops are protecting e3 and e2. So at the moment, the bishops are passive. But later on, white will just regroup. Yeah. c5, queen d2, another regrouping move, moving away from the c file. So rook into c8, castles. Knight goes back to b8. I don't like this move, knight b8. Okay, but he wanted to go for knight c6 to keep an eye on d4. But it's not the best square for the knight right here. Yeah. So rook e1, knight c6. Knight into c3. Okay, knight a5, threatening knight c4. White simply plays b3, restricting the knight on a5, not allowing it to jump on the c4 square. Queen goes back to d8, rook to c1, developing his last piece. Rook goes to e6, takes on c5, takes on c5, knight a4. The point of rook c1. These are two hanging pawns, c5 and d5. Knight attacks, rook also attacks. Alright, with black's rook e6, he went for rook e6, protecting c5. Nice move here by Vidit, bishop h4, threatening bishop takes. If queen takes, free knight on a5. If rook takes, knight takes on c5. Right? Both the queen and the rook are overworked pieces. So the knight goes back to b7 to protect c5. Bishop goes to c2, developing his bishop. It wasn't at the same time connecting the rooks. Isn't doing anything on d1, by the way. So queen a5 takes. Rook c d1. g5. The point of rook d1 is not just moving the rook to the central square, but also attacking the defender on f6 and then free pawn on d5. So g5, white goes for bishop g3. Again, the threat is e5, take the knight, take on d5. Black provokes white to go for bishop f5, right? Winning the exchange. Because black wanted to take that b3 pawn. It's a bad knight on a5 anyways. So So bishop f5, he takes the pawn, and a nice move by h4. This is just a good understanding of the position. White needs to give these two rooks an open line to operate, yeah. But you cannot use the b file, the c4. Rooks operate on open files. So h4 undermining the pawn on g5 to open up the h file. So rook c6 takes on e6, takes, and now king f2. Rook is going to activate on the h file, right? c4, dangerous pass pawn, bishop e5, keeping an eye on c3, the knight, and the bishop. Knight goes back to d7, bishop c3. All right, you always have to stop the pawn, yes, because it was 3 steps from promoting. Bishop goes to b5, knight b2. Temporary retreat for the knight. A bad square, but later on it's also defending that important d3 square. Knight dc5, rook h1. The rooks are ready to operate. Knight d3 check, knight takes d3. C takes d3, rook h8. A bit rush, yeah? A bit rush. Bishop e5 was stronger, so that black cannot make use of the 6th rank with e5. Okay, let's say for example, the rook goes to c2, you go king g3, and you push that pawn. Oh, ho, ho, right? With rook c1 coming. Now you go rook h8. King, let's say, goes f7. You go rook dh1. Let's say the rook goes to c1, rook on h7. Don't worry about that pawn. King goes g6, e4, take away f5. Yes, threatening mate on g7. Okay, if you take on e4, reinforcement. So this is useless. You promote to a queen, rook d7 is made. Okay. That's why it's important to centralize that bishop, blocking that e6 pawn. Okay, a bit rush with rook h8. Too excited to win. King f7, rook h7 check. And here king e8, big blunder, the decisive mistake. Okay, king g8 was better, of course. And I think here it should draw, yeah. Because if you make use of rook g7, just king f8, yeah? If you play bishop into e5, black might win with rook c2. Yes, because there's no mate. You cannot reinforce here because now there's rook c1. See the big difference? That small margin, if you play bishop e5, it was a win. Yeah. Because the bishop, if you look at this one, with rook h8, the bishop is still under attack on c3. Yes. To save some tempo, put the bishop on e5. Yeah. Moving away from the attacking piece on c6. Well, rook h8, king f7, and the decisive mistake, king e8. Nice intermediate move. Attacking b5, counterplay. After takes, bishop f6. Black has to play e5, because if, let's say, he pushes the pawn on d2, there's rook e7. If king goes to f8, rook h1, it's going to be made on h8. And if you go, let's say, for example, rook to c1, getting rid of the rook on d1, rook e7 check, king goes to f8, rook takes d3. No pass pawn. All right. The rook can take e6, the rook can take a7. So you play d5, takes on g5, knight c5, rook dh1, the connected rooks, rook can go swing to a7, rook h8 is going to be mate. Okay, king f8, rook takes a7, king goes to g8, defending h8, e4, okay, a bit too careful, but here, no need. Just rook h7, double the rooks in the 7th rank. If you push that pawn in d2, rook a g7. If you play king f8, bishop e7, king e8, takes on c5, threatening mate on g8 or h8. Not needed, but okay, anyways, e4 is still winning, keeping an eye on d2. It's better to be safe than sorry. Yeah. So rook h7, bishop d2, and then king e3. Takes on f3, takes on f3, bishop c6, rook h7, attacking the knight, and then rook e7, threatening mate on c8, bishop b7, removing the defender. He gets the piece on b7, and here black resigned. Right? And with the resignation from Vidit scores his second win in a row, and he leads Group C. Vidit needs to win. If he wants to qualify for the 2 slots in the candidates, he needs to win his group, right? And go for the knockouts. Okay, because only 2 slots. In leg number 1, it was Aronian and Nakamura. Yeah. And if Vidit dreams of becoming a world champion and play the candidates, he has to win the Belgrade leg number 2. All right. Thanks for watching, everyone. Thank you for supporting our channel, Chart Smash Chess, and also our new channel, Chart Smash Entertainment. We will continue to give you fun and exciting videos in the days to come. Again, this is Coach Oliver. Thank you, everyone. Stay safe. Bye-bye.